Betrayal at dusk. The rain-slicked pavement gleamed under the street lamp, reflecting the jagged edges of my fractured world. I stood frozen outside our apartment, keys dangling uselessly in my hand, as the muffled sound of laughter, hers and someone else's, seeped through the cracked window. My wife, Elise, was inside, her voice bright and unguarded in a way I hadn't heard in months. The other voice, low and unfamiliar, coiled around my chest like a snake, squeezing until I could barely breathe. I'd come home early, hoping to surprise her with dinner, but the surprise was mine, sharp and serrated. The air smelled of wet asphalt and betrayal. My stomach churned as I pressed my ear closer to the window, the cold glass biting my skin. Her laugh came again, a sound that used to feel like home but now sliced through me. "You're terrible," she teased, her voice dripping with a warmth I hadn't felt in ages. The man's chuckle followed, intimate, conspiratorial. My mind screamed to barge in, to demand answers, but my legs wouldn't move. What if I was wrong? What if this was nothing, a friend, a co-worker, a misunderstanding? Doubt gnawed at me, but the knife in my gut twisted deeper with every shared laugh. Inside, I found the living room dim, lit only by the flickering glow of a candle on the coffee table. Elise sat on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her, a glass of red wine in her hand. Across from her was a man I didn't know, lean and sharp-featured, his eyes glinting with something predatory as he leaned closer to her. The air was thick with the scent of her perfume, jasmine, too heavy, too deliberate. "Mark, you're home early," she said, her voice catching like a snagged thread. Her smile was a mask, tight at the edges. "Who's this?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. The man stood, offering a hand I didn't take. "Evan," he said, his tone too smooth, like oil on water. "Just stopped by to drop off some files for Elise." Files. At 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. The lie hung in the air, flimsy and transparent. I glanced at the table. No papers, just 2 wine glasses, one smudged with her lipstick. Elise's eyes darted to mine, then away, her fingers tightening around her glass. "He's from the office," she said quickly, as if speed could patch the holes in her story. My mind raced back to the past few months, her late nights, her guarded phone, the way she'd started locking her laptop. Small things I'd dismissed as stress, as her climbing the corporate ladder. Now they glowed like warning signs I'd been too blind to see. "Files," I repeated, my voice flat. Evan shifted, his confidence faltering for a split second. I wanted to believe her, to cling to the love we'd built over 8 years, but the room felt like it was closing in, the walls whispering truths I wasn't ready to hear. "I'll let you two catch up," I said, turning toward the kitchen, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. I needed space to think, to breathe, to stop the world from spinning. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter, the cold granite grounding me as my mind spiraled. I'd been unfaithful too, hadn't I? Not physically, but emotionally. Late nights at the bar with Sarah, my co-worker, sharing stories I no longer told Elise. Sarah's easy smile, her attentive eyes, they'd filled a void I hadn't admitted existed. I'd rationalized it as friendship, but the guilt now burned like acid. Was I any better than Elise? The hypocrisy stung, but it didn't dull the pain of her betrayal. I poured a glass of water, the faucets hissed drowning out their murmurs. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Sarah. "You okay? You seemed off today." I stared at it, the words blurring. I'd never crossed the line with her, but I'd wanted to. God, I'd wanted to. The realization hit like a punch. I'd been unfaithful in my heart, and now Elise was slipping away in hers. Were we both breaking the same vows, just in different ways? Back in the living room, Evan was gone, and Elise stood by the window, staring out at the rain. "He's just a colleague," she said without turning, her voice brittle. "You don't trust me anymore, do you?" The accusation stung, but her defensiveness was a spotlight on her guilt. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I said, "You've been different, Elise. Distant. I'm not blind." She spun to face me, her eyes flashing with something, anger, fear, maybe both. "And you're perfect. Always at work, always with her." Her words landed like a slap. She knew about Sarah. Of course she did. We'd both been dancing around our secrets, pretending the cracks in our marriage were just shadows. I'm not cheating, she said, her voice breaking. But you're not here anymore, Mark. Not really. The room grew quieter, the rain outside a steady drumbeat. I wanted to believe her, but the wine glasses, the laughter, the locked laptop, they screamed louder than her words. Then why does it feel like you're lying? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her silence was an answer, heavy and suffocating. Days passed, each one a tightrope walk of suspicion and denial. I started checking her phone when she showered, hating myself for it but unable to stop. There were no explicit messages, but the late-night texts from Evan work were too frequent, too vague. Meeting tomorrow. Call me later. My imagination filled in the gaps, each one a fresh wound. Meanwhile, I pulled away from Sarah, ignoring her texts, trying to salvage what was left of my marriage. But the trust was gone, replaced by a hollow ache. One night, I came home to find Elise packing a suitcase. Her eyes were red, her movements jerky. I need space, she said, her voice raw. I can't do this anymore. My heart plummeted, but I didn't stop her. I couldn't. The truth was there, unspoken but undeniable. She was leaving, and I'd already lost her. As the door closed behind her, I sank to the floor, the apartment silent except for the echo of my own regrets. Then, the twist, a letter slipped under the door hours later, in her handwriting. I tore it open, my hands trembling. Mark, I didn't cheat. I wanted to, with Evan, to hurt you the way you hurt me with Sarah. But I couldn't. I love you too much. I'm leaving because we're both breaking each other, and I don't know how to stop. Her words shattered me, not because she was innocent, but because we'd both been guilty of betrayal, not with our bodies, but with our hearts. The suitcase wasn't for Evan. It was for freedom from the wreckage we'd made. I stood there, the letter crumpling in my fist, the rain outside mirroring the storm within. We'd both wanted priority in each other's lives, but we'd given it to others instead. The betrayal wasn't just hers or mine, it was ours, a shared failure that left us both adrift.